Hellfire and the Fall of Empire. It's been a week. Let's refresh our memories. This is the Kingdom of Decapolis, nominally a tribute to the Greater Kaizen Empire. We have carved out a niche. We were actually part of the empire when the Imperial Navy took off. All of our neighbors decided that it would be a fine time to start carving slices of our kingdom off. And in fact, one of our neighbors, the Tilian Republic, has gone in and taken Damascus. Damascus has fallen. Pella has also fallen. Now, Damascus fell last year. The year is 5149. When it fell, 5150, it's time to fight. Same thing with Pella. Although, in this case, we had the Popular Front moved in from the south, and they took Pella almost without a fight. They brought what looked like overwhelming force, and the government leaders of Pella, we pulled a total Gates of Toledo moment. So we have some fractious undercurrents to the society, apparently, who are more than happy to throw wide the gates. We're going to have to go beat them up. Now, that happens early in the year. First, we have to launch our raid against Damascus. Essentially, while we have our nice big military get sent over to Damascus, that's when the opportunists come in and kind of stab us in the back. So we have two fights that we have to figure out by the end of this video, Damascus and Pella. If Damascus takes too long, then we're going to punt and we'll do Pella next week. But I'd like to try to get both of these done so we can kind of keep things moving and tick that clock over to, is it 5150? I don't think it is. I think it's 2450. That's right. Was 2449. 5150 would be much too memeable. Here, for the record, is a close-up of what the city of Damascus looks like. It straddles this river. We should probably, I keep intending to name this river, but I keep forgetting. Damascus has an interesting feature. There's a high mesa just outside. It does straddle the river, so the river doesn't really make that big of a difference. We can tell our battle simulator that it splits the city and see if that makes a difference, but we'll leave that up to the limited language model. That I know it's large, but I mean, they're really limited. We saw that last time when it got completely confused about which side of the fight I was doing. I take a little bit of solace in the fact that when I was running the invaders, I was able to beat back a larger force despite being on the offensive. It was a fair fight, which, you know, you're an experienced wargamer. You generally want to go in with 2-to-1 odds. We only had 1-to-1 odds, and we were still able to beat ourselves up pretty bad. So let's take a look at the order of battle. And here's what we're looking at for the retaking of Damascus 1, 2, 3. So the Tilians are going to be defending with 4 companies of militia. These are the Vichy Damascenes. These are the militia that are the natives who have been pressed into service. They have 6 companies of regular infantry. Now, the difference between these two is that the militia does not have armor. The regular infantry has flak armor. They do have 2 units of tube artillery and 2 companies of armor. One has 3 heavy tanks. One has 4 medium tanks. So the Hippos, and I have, by the way, did I show you this little video right here? This guy, this is the logo of one of our units. In fact, is it on here? Yeah, this company of heavy armor. All right, so we have 3 companies of regular mechanized infantry. Now we have the bonus. We've got energy weapons for our infantry. 3 companies of green infantry. We just put them together this year. So it's June, so they've had like 4 months to train. We know the terrain. We're going to be in good shape. This company each of these is supported by a company of heavy armor. We're not joking around anymore. When the Tilians took this city, the difference was their heavy armor. Even our air cover didn't do us any good. I tend to think that our defenders didn't want to do any collateral damage, where the Damascenes were like, we're rebuilding it anyway. We're going to knock down all their statues and put up our own. We have 2 batteries of artillery. One of them has electronic countermeasures. That's going to be useful. And then we have 1 engineer battalion. I should have sent them in last time. We do still have 3 ground attack aircraft. These are Imperial assets, and this is why we're not fully independent just yet. The Empire still has a presence here. We still think we're trying to hold this together for the Empire. Now, if you remember 2 years ago, we had a mercenary company that fought with us, and this is a point where I got to use them this year. We actually were very good to them. They come from the Popular Front. I don't want to use them on the other battle. If I try to use them to retake Pella, then these guys are going up against their former countrymen. I don't trust them. I'm going to use them to help, like, quash things. We'll use them as kind of like security after our rousing victory. But will that victory happen? I don't know. We're going to have to ask the battle computer, and any computer could be a battle computer these days because we've got a little thing called ChatGPT. I'm not going to reread all of this, but I want to show you what I've done to change things a little bit so I can show you what they call prompts that I use to generate this, and then I'll click to run it so that you can see in real time that I'm not trying to cheat you. Now, theoretically, I could have tried this a couple of times and changed my prompts to get the results I want, but where's the fun in that? So I said, look, simulate a near-modern battle in which the Hippos army is trying to retake the city of Damascus. I will give you orders of battle and lay out the terrain. Do you understand? So that's an important one. Do you get it? I need you to understand what we're doing here. And it says, yes, I will believe it when we see it, right? But I give it the orders of battle, and it actually repeats them back, right? So here's our Tillian order of battle. Yep, that's everything. I gave them 6 months of prep time. They've been in town for a while. It took us that long to get ready as well. And then I give the Hippos army, and then he says, all right, give me the terrain, and I can start simulating the battle. And so I have just said it's located in the plains, right? Here's our map again. Its most distinguishing characteristic, there's Damascus, is this river, which we'll probably start calling the Tillian River just because it flows down from the Tillian Republic lands. Although I've probably named it 3 times, and I just keep forgetting to write it down. It is a center of arts and entertainment. Its distinguishing characteristic is the wide and slow-moving river. It's wreathed by wide suburbs. The Hippos are attacking from the west. And then all I'm going to do is say, run the battle. Now, last time, you'll recall that I told it to run a miniature war game, and it did okay. It doesn't really understand the mechanics or the operations, but it was okay. And as I said, it completely misunderstood. So here's our setting, and it just repeats all that back. Time of day, midday, clear skies. Both forces have visibility and air support capability. Now, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Right, so already this thing it needs a little bit of nudge. I don't know where it gets the air assault from. It's not listed up here. Okay, 6 months of prep time. I don't know. It does. At least it knows the Hippos have a technological edge. So I have to take a look at this. Here's our airstrikes, right? And then the Tillian. Let's see if we got the Hippos. The big question is going to be whether or not the Tillians have air support. If they do, I'm going to tell it, hey, Tillians don't have air support. Rerun it. Our friendly neighborhood computer demon says the artillery barrage disrupts 2 of the companies of Tillian militia. The airstrikes are low. They launch precision strikes on key artillery, so we're focusing on the artillery first. However, the heavy tanks remain intact and are stationed in fortified positions along the main streets leading into the city, probably attacking along the major thoroughfares where we have the widest room, the most ability to get as into the center as possible. One of the things we could have done is said the Hippos are focused on grabbing the city center to establish firm control of that important junction. And that gives us a definitive victory condition. We didn't do that. Let's see if it's okay. Our Hippos battalions of trained but inexperienced infantry push forward. They're supported by the 4 medium tanks. The Tillian militia and regular infantry positions are cleared out, but despite the technological advantage, the inexperience of the Hippos slows their advance. That's understandable, resulting in fierce resistance from the Tillians, especially from the 6 companies of regular infantry entrenched in the suburbs. This is still the preparatory stages of the battle. The Tillian heavy and medium tank companies move to block the advance of the Hippos forces. 3 heavy tanks are stationed in the main avenues, ready to face the Hippos tanks. The tanks engage in a fierce exchange, with the Hippos medium tanks using their superior mobility to outflank the Tillian tanks. However, the Tillian heavy tanks pack significant firepower. The defensive positions make them tough to dislodge. As the Hippos push into the suburbs, so now we have urban combat artillery counterfire, the Tillian regular infantry fortify the buildings and street corners. The Hippos veteran mechanized infantry use their experience to clear out pockets of resistance with precision strikes from energy weapons. The close quarter combat proves challenging, and the Hippos battalions struggle to maintain coordination. Okay, this is all very reasonable so far. The Hippos electronic countermeasures give them an advantage in artillery support. The artillery is now neutralized, and the Hippos tube artillery targets key points in the city, including buildings harboring sniper teams. So now our inexperienced infantry have a little bit of support. The Tillians counterattack in several skirmishes, but the heavy tanks take longer to neutralize. Despite the advantage, mobility, and firepower, The Hippos tanks are worn down and lack of tactical coordination between the Hippos tanks and the infantry. So we throw the Hippos mercenary in, shock force, support the Hippos battalion in the city center. We've taken the city center. See, I was telling you that's an important thing. They make progress, but the Tillian veteran infantry in the city fight with determination and knowledge of the terrain. I guess they both have knowledge of the terrain. So phase 3, push into the city center. As the battle rages on, we get into urban guerrilla warfare. The Tillian regular infantry engage in guerrilla tactics. They're launching ambushes. They're slowing the Hippos. The Tillian tanks have significant resistance. The tanks engage in a desperate counterattack. Final assault on the city center. With most of the suburbs cleared, the Hippos infantry begin their final assault. The Tillian defenders are severely weakened, with many infantry units dispersed. The remaining Tillian tanks, although formidable, are unable to halt with the combined pressure of the Hippos infantry, artillery, and air support. Final conclusion, after hours of intense fighting with significant casualties on both sides, and I think this is more than hours. I honestly think this is probably like a week of fighting. We'll let it slide. The Tillian Republic is forced to retreat further into the city center and toward the river. The Hippos mercenaries and the veteran mechanized infantry work together to clear the remaining Tillian positions. I told you those mercenaries were going to come in handy. With the fall of government buildings and infrastructure and no effective way to halt the air support, the Tillian defenders are forced to surrender. Casualties. So the Hippos had heavy casualties among the inexperienced, with tank losses as well. All right, so now here's where I need to translate this back into this. So we're going to have to come up with a way to tell this the system, like what kind of casualties are we looking at here. The Tillians, significant losses in their infantry, artillery, and tanks. Look, I don't care. I guess the real question is, do we get the 50% casualty rate that would silence the Tillians for D6 years? That's the other thing we need to know. The Tillian Republic's forces are in disarray, with key leadership likely decimated. The once vibrant, artistic city now bears the scars of war, 2 years of war, and the Hippos have reestablished control over its strategic and cultural heart. All right, so now we know what the battle is. It's about what we expected. We hit them with fairly significant, better odds, 2-1 in the forces, plus the technological advantage and those aircraft. I think those are really key. We might need to lay down some money, got to spend the cabbage to build our own, because once they, fly off back to the Imperial Kaizen, we're going to be hurting. But we still need to know what the casualties are. So to that end, we type up a little order. Hey, tell me what casualty rates of each unit of Hippo suffered. Tell me the percentages of infantry and how many tanks in each company were damaged. So oddly enough, they give us this nice little bullet point here. So we had 2 battalions of trained but inexperienced. So these 6 companies supported by the tanks, 600 infantry. The casualty rate, due to the urban, it was heavy casualties. They engaged in prolonged street-to-street fighting, which significantly impacted their effectiveness. I remember, we only have 4 months to boogie on over. So really, we have 3 months of R&R, and then a couple of weeks of moving, and then a couple of weeks left in the season to be able to try to retake Pella. So these guys, these 6 companies, suffered they had trouble facing coordination. So about 35% of the total force, 20% lightly wounded, and then combat effectiveness. They are significantly degraded in numbers and fighting ability, with many of their more experienced. Now that's going to be really important for our next fight. The other thing is, for our mechanized infantry, 3 companies, 100 each, they performed well. Okay, it says their casualty breakdown. So the inexperienced guys, about 35% killed or seriously wounded. So they're out of the campaign. For the mechanized infantry, we're about 25%. 15% lightly wounded. I'm going to assume that they'll be back to fighting strength so we're back up to 75% strength, and this will be plugged into our battle computer for the next fight. These guys, the inexperienced guys, they're going to be at 80%. No, they lost 35. So they're going to be fighting at 65% effectiveness. And these guys will be fighting at 75%. And then the mercenary infantry, we're going to leave them here. So I'm not worried about that. They'll be back up to strength later. Okay, we did only have 10%. It says their elite status and experience helped them clear key positions, but they did face heavy resistance. They remained highly effective despite those playing a crucial role. So, medals all around for those guys. Then we also have the tank casualties, and here's where I'm really concerned, because these we have significant economic impacts. 2 of our medium tanks were destroyed, so 1 in each battalion. Completely destroyed. Now, I do have the ability, I do have a couple of What do we call those things? The recovery companies that can pick these things up and move them. So the two that are destroyed can be taken back, and we can get one back into action at a reasonable price. But the other one is out. Like, we're gonna take the two and we're gonna push them together, and they're gonna have a little, little tank baby, and we'll get one effective tank out of it. But now one of them only has 3 tanks. Damaged, repairable. 3 medium tanks were damaged but not destroyed. They suffered damage to tracks, gun systems, and armor. All right, but they managed to pull back for repairs. That's pretty good. And then the mercenary light tank, while lightly armored, it was not destroyed. It was damaged, so we'll fix that up for those guys. Not a problem. Overall casualty numbers, tanks, yeah. So then it just kind of redoes it. As a percentage of the force? Yeah. All right, so they suffered significant casualties. 45% casualty rate. But again, remember, casualty is injured and dead. And I'm not concerned. I mean, I'm concerned with the dead. We're going to have to put a nice big, like, fountain and a square for the memory of those fallen in defense of our burgeoning kingdom. But from a battle perspective, for the Battle of Pella, that's where I'm not really concerned about these guys. I need to know who's going to be effective for the next fight. So we can go into the winter, take a deep breath. We get all 10 cities, and maybe next year we'll be able to earn. Oh, now this year, remember, we get into the next year, we're only going to get income from 8 of these cities. The cities that were subject to battle, they don't contribute to our income. So it's going to be a lean year next year. That's going to be a problem, right? But at least we took that city. So now let's turn our attention to the west. All right, here's our Hippos forces. I did a little quality control, and after running the numbers, it looks like our mechanized infantry are 75% strength. So what I'll do is figure out what the cost to replace these guys are, multiply that by 25%. That's what it's going to cost to get these guys back up to 100. We'll do that next year. Likewise, for each of these battalions of infantry supported by medium tanks. We're going to have to buy 2 more medium tanks. That's all right. I can do that. I went back and I just double-checked the numbers that ran. It said, yeah, you lost a couple completely outright. Okay, no problem, but we didn't lose any of these heavy armor. I don't think I remember them playing a role in the battle. My computer knew they were there, but it never said what they did. So I'm going to go ahead and task the armor, one of these batteries of artillery. And here's the idea, right? To kind of put this into narrative format, these companies that are operating at less than 100% strength, we still have to defend this frontier, right? So I'm going to leave them in Hippos. It's a happening town. It's a hit place. They got plenty of R&R. These guys can get medical care, get healed up, and they'll be able to provide additional defense. I'm going to leave one of these batteries of artillery behind. The Imperial Artillery with the electronic countermeasures, the Engineer Battalion, the ground attack aircraft, they're flying out of Hippos, so I don't have to worry about those guys. And that means that our order of battle for the second fight, the Popular Front, remember, they came in with 6 companies of militia. And that was all it took for me to lose Pella. Who knew? Thanks, guys. They flipped the home guard, right? No armor. So again, we've only got 10 companies here. And remember, we paid the Grey Horde. There's a bunch of basically space Mongols living out to our west. Way over here. Yep, Biscotti's excited. So here's the Grey Horde. And because the Grey Horde's over here, I'm going to call this the Grey River. It's the barrier, the boundary, the physical demarcation between there's probably a little, verge here. The Grey Horde mainly stays out here. They came over, said, hey, I hear there's some fighting. We said, yeah, saddle up, boys. And then we hoofed it on over here to Pella, okay? So our forward operating base is probably somewhere around here. Maybe we set it up here with clear routes of retreat to Garasa. We also or maybe we set it up here to protect Scythopolis and Hippos. This is where the fighting is going to happen. All right, I want to look at the Hippos map, the little inset high. I don't remember what you say here. So again, Hippos, Pella is right here on what we're going to call the Makan River. And there's a little swamp down here. There's some woods, right? But none of this really factors in because, again, we're kind of in the let's call this the rolling hills, okay? It doesn't show up on the map, but it's not, it's kind of that nice, like, Midwestern rolling hills, lightly wooded, that kind of thing. And we'll tell our battle computer that so it's not out in the plains. This river's a little swifter, a little more narrow, but still, you're going to have to cross it at the bridges, if at all. Now let's look at our Grey Horde. These guys are going to come in handy. We paid a pretty penny for these guys to come in, and they've got 2 companies of mounted they've got one battalion that's got 2 companies of mounted troops. Oh boy, let me lock that in. Supported by a technical. Oh, and then they've got 1 company of infantry. Then these 2 battalions, and I'm thinking these guys are like a Mad Max thing, right? Where they've got these 4 technicals, 4 companies of infantry, right? But then they've got 8 companies of mounted. What does that mean? I mean, is it beast cavalry? I think that's probably what we'll call it. So although we're at 10 to, there's 2 battalions there, so it's 10 companies going up against, well, this amounts to 9 companies of infantry supported by 5 technicals. I think that's what I'm going to tell the battle computer when I set this one up. But then, like I said, I'm bringing my heavy armor. I could bring one of those medium armor to the fight. There's only 3 tanks in it, though. So I think we'll do that. And then we'll leave one of the other armor back there, back at, oh wait, but these guys, I forgot. These medium armor, I gotta cross them off. They're attached to the infantry to support them. So the medium armor goes bye-bye. So in addition to all of that infantry that we're throwing at these guys, we do have the advantage when it comes to artillery. We've got the engineer battalion that can help kind of clear the streets, and then we do still have those 3 attack aircraft, okay? The downside is we're going to have some challenges coordinating with these wild barbarians from the Grey Horde. I didn't want the last battle to influence this one in terms of the cogitating power of my mysterious machine. So what do we got? I started fresh. I said the Hippos are trying to retake the city. I said the city is in rolling hills. It's got the river. We've got a high-rise urban core. All of the suburbs are out to the east. Here's the kicker. Just to clarify, I don't know if this 2 battalions means each battalion has 8 companies of mounted, beast-mounted troops. But, that's all they do. I double-checked. They're beast-mounted. The foot infantry for the Grey Horde have obsolete projectile weapons. They really only fight at about half strength. The beast-mounted infantry are better, and of course they have those 5 technicals. The one thing I wanted to be sure here is I actually asked it, hey, do you know what a technical is in this context? And my little machine said, yes, it refers to a type of improvised military vehicle, civilian pickup, heavy weapons such as a machine gun. They are often used in irregular warfare and can provide fast mobility, fire support, and a level of firepower, right? So here's their main force. 5 companies of infantry, 10 companies of beast-mounted infantry with flak armor and projectile weapons, right? 5 technicals, like we said. And then the machine says, okay, they've got a combination of lightly armored infantry, highly mobile mounted units, and support from fast-moving technicals. So, all right, well, the Grey Horde mercenaries are fierce, but they're undisciplined. And I think this is going to be important. They're going to struggle to coordinate with the Hippos supporting units, right? We're cobbling together a defensive force here. Thank you for the context, says Mr. Chatty. That's going to be the balancing factor. So then we give the order battle that I told you, right? We got 3 heavy tanks, the artillery with electronic countermeasures, but I mean, long-range fire support, right? This adds a significant amount of firepower. I said, well, wait a minute. The Popular Front has just 2 weeks to prepare their defenses. What does that mean? And he says, okay, well, limited fortifications, lack of extensive anti-vehicle measures, limited troop training, vulnerable communications, and environmental use. On a positive side, for the Popular Front, the rolling hills and farmlands could establish basic defensive positions. However, given their equipment, limited time to prepare, they're going to struggle to take advantage of that. So we have a nice little summary. He does a really good job summarizing this. Let's see if he forgets any details when I press run the battle. Run the simulation, please. Press enter, and then it starts running it out. Battle simulation, the retaking of Pella. We'll let that scroll down. It tells me the setting. We know that. The initial assault. The Hippos begin their assault at dawn with artillery bombardment from their battery, targeting the outskirts and defensive positions. You know, I probably could have said the Hippos want to limit the amount of collateral damage, but the Grey Horde doesn't care about that. The electronic countermeasures will make it difficult for the Popular Front to coordinate their movements. We have artillery fire, ground attack aircraft, strike key defensive positions. It was getting a little repetitive, isn't it? The Popular Front defenders disorganized due... Oh, but it does say here, look, the ground attack aircraft. A few buildings in the city's suburbs are hit, causing collateral damage. Oopsie. I guess we're going to have to... We're going to do better for the people of Pella than the folks out in North Carolina. But we like the people. As a government, we like our people. So you can tell it's kind of a fantasy. Popular Front, the defenders, disorganized, struggled to react to the airstrikes. However, they managed to position a few militia units in the woods and behind the river's edge, attempting to use terrain for cover. The regular militia with flak armor take up positions. So then we have phase 2. So that was our preparatory bombardment. The beast infantry, protected by flak armor, charge through the farmland. They get to bypass most of the urban defenses, but they encounter significant resistance. The defenders, though less disciplined, there should be more. Oh, I thought there were more. Anyway, they have fortified positions in the hills. They use hit-and-run tactics, ambushing the charging mounted troops with projectile weapons from behind cover. The Grey Horde infantry struggle to coordinate with the rest of the Hippos forces. They advance into the suburbs. Ferocious street fighting, where militia infantry and flak armor put up stubborn resistance. The tanks and technicals, the Hippos' 3 heavy tanks, roll into the open suburban streets, causing significant damage to the defensive. But they're vulnerable to improvised anti-tank efforts. Oh, sending tanks into street fighting, always a problem. The technicals provide fire support, blasting into defensive positions, so that helps, right? While we don't have a strong infantry screen, those technicals are kind of serving the same role. The resistance, the defenders are hit hard by the firepower, but their flak-armored militia hold key buildings in the city's industrial zone. Yeah, there's probably a few factors out there. I'll allow it. A few militia companies manage to coordinate and set up ambushes along the narrow streets, slowing the Hippos' advance. So then we have our counterattack and final push. The Popular Front launches a counterattack from the eastern suburbs. Got to push them out. The eastern suburbs, okay, push them to the west, I guess, where the regular militia have set up a defensive line. The Grey Horde infantry, struggling with a lack of coordination, are held back, but the beast-mounted infantry prove mobile, circle behind, and catch some units off guard. The tanks break through, and Pella falls, with the Hippos' heavy tanks and beast infantry breaking through the defenses in the eastern suburbs. The Popular Front's morale begins to collapse. The defenders make a final stand at the city's riverbank, using the terrain to create makeshift defenses. Some of the remaining units put up stiff resistance in the urban core, but they are ultimately overwhelmed. Victory for the Hippos, no big surprise there. Retaking the city of Pella, they overwhelmed the disorganized Popular Front. The Popular Front was unable to capitalize, while their militia put up strong resistance. They were ultimately overwhelmed. So this concludes the battle simulation. All right, but once again, I need to say, can you give me casualties for both sides? And this time we'll just be open. Let's see what it says. He says, okay, for the Hippos, 20 to 30%. Okay, so for the beast-mounted cavalry, so this is the mercenary infantry, right? They lost 1 to 2 companies. But I don't care. I'm not going to keep these guys around. So that doesn't really matter to me. I already paid them. They lost 10 to 20% of their beast-mounted infantry. My 3 heavy tanks, 1 tank lost or heavily damaged, but they sustained minor. So we have 5 to 10 crew members are killed. So we're going to be able to repair these guys. Will probably cost 10% of the cost of replacement, but I'll double-check the rules on that. Our technicals, again, right, 1 to 2 of them were destroyed. That's fine. We may give them some of the captured weapons. This may be a problem later, but we'll give them some of the captured weapons. We'll let them police up their dead. They probably smashed and grabbed a few of our convenience stores. They are part of the Horde after all. But this is what I really care about: minimal casualties on the Hippos as they remain behind the front lines. A couple of personnel, but that's about it. So total Hippos 2,000 to 3,000 across all units. Yeah, but most of those are Grey Horde, and that makes it easier for me to not have to worry about the Grey Horde coming and trying to stomp on my toys. The Popular Front, on the other hand, 50 to 70%. So we are at 40 to 60 for the regular militia. And then anti-tank units, special units, they didn't have any of those. And for some reason, this machine thinks that Pella was theirs to begin with. As they fall back, additional losses occur from desertion, capture, and small hit-and-run tactics. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're going to earn ourselves that D6 years of respite from any attacks from the Popular Front. They tried a little. Is that their first one? I think they sent a company or two. Oh, it was the Malcontents. That's what it was. So we're gonna have some peace on the Tillian front and on the Popular Front. Wow, that one got away from me. But remember, next year the Wheelians are back in play. They spent a year or 2 licking their wounds. They are going to be angry. Remember that we turned them back over here at the surprise battle in the hills. So I need to put some cross swords at Pella and at Damascus. And I need to remember where those other battles were. I think there was one at Kanatha. And I think that's it, man. So a couple of good battles. This would have been an interesting one to fight on the tabletop. Again, I cannot recommend Hellfire and the Fall of Empire. For my taste, it really does hit the sweet spot when it comes to managing the logistics and the spreadsheets of tracking your units as they go without being too completely overwhelming. So a really successful year for us. We're going to have to spend some money to replace our losses, but those green units of infantry are now going to be experienced. We'll call them standard, and if we can get through another year of fighting, then they'll be veteran after that second year of fighting. That is what's going to happen in the year 2950. Oh, I said 24. Yeah, I always forget what year it is. At least in the game. So, but that will take place in 2950. And because these guys bore the brunt of the casualties, the Grey Horde, I don't have to worry about casualties down here. I just need to replace these guys and maybe buy myself some aircraft because they are a huge counterweight. They're a difference maker, and I don't want to lose them. Every year, remember, there's a chance they go bye-bye. Until next week, when we run through 2951, I'm praying for you.